This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here. Now be sure to watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV by subscribing on YouTube and following them on social media for all the latest Leicester City news and information. Come on you foxes!
Strap yourself in,
because we're set up, switched on and ready to go.
Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
Hello, fellow Fox fans. Welcome along. It's Friday at 7 o'clock. It must be the preview show. It certainly is. I tell you what, it's time for revenge this weekend, isn't it? Third versus fourth. You wait for a top four clash to come along. Like buses, you then get 2 in a week. It's a 6-pointer for both games. How many of these things can I come up with? One more. Can we hammer a nail in the coffin of West Ham's top 4 ambitions? Hammer a nail. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, did you? It's the preview show. It is, and I promise you, I'm going to get a new joke book. I really, really am. Can we get back on the bike? Bad performance last week, bad result, or bit of a free hit, really. We were paying the top team in the land. Some would argue possibly the top team in Europe. Still, we weren't any worse off. Results went in our favour. We've got West Ham this weekend. Chance to get our own back a little bit. Special show this evening. We've got a special guest, and I'm really, really pleased to welcome along those of you of a certain age like myself and indeed Craig, Richard Smith from ex-Leicester City player, ex-Fox. Let's bring him in and say good evening, Richard.
Good evening, Chris. Thanks for having me again.
Not a problem. I'm glad all my bad jokes and you still come back. It can't be too bad.
Got sort that picture out though. That looks nothing like me, mate.
To be honest with you, I was going to say you haven't changed.
Oh, thanks a lot.
I think it's. I will try and find another one if I can for you, sir.
I appreciate it. You know, it's all right, mate. It's all good.
We will also bring my normal colleague in on a preview show. For those of you that have been watching, you'll know some call him the wise old sage. Others call him Colin Crompton. Again, for those of us that are old enough to remember the Wheel Tappers and Shunters Club, he's going to probably bring in the rest of the committee with him as well. We'll say good evening to Craig. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, Richard. Good evening, everyone.
Have you got your bell handy?
I've got my what, excuse me?
Your bell handy. You don't remember Wheel Tappers and Shunters because he used to ring a bell, didn't he?
No, he did. He had one of those circular bells, I think, that he used to go with. I've just noticed that we're all joining the Rough and Ready Club this evening. We're clearly, Chris, all just paying homage to you with our sort of, a little bit of stubble. Although it's great to see that you're proving the old adage wrong that black is slimming.
Well, I gave up on the striped kit, because that wasn't slimming either. And I can't speak for Richard, but I don't know. I might be rough, but I've never been ready. I'll tell you about that. I think it just says how lazy we all are. But I want to start off, and I think, and this is something that Craig did. I think he did a show with somebody on this with Ray from the Man City fan club about Leicester City, about women and Leicester City women in particular, who've had a fantastic season, and they've won promotion to the FA Women's Super League for the first time. So congratulations to them. They've absolutely walked it. Richard, we could do with a few of those in our team, couldn't we?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's an absolutely fantastic achievement, isn't it, to get us up there?
Yes.
Is it the first time that we've been in the top league? So, I mean, it's a great asset for the club, isn't it?
Yes.
On a whole.
I mean, they've got now the permanent home, Craig, at Beaver Drive. They're part of the King Power family now. It's obviously made a difference. And, I've got to be honest with you, I watch women's football and, sometimes it's better than watching men's football.
I'm not going to go that far. I'll let you become the fanboy of the women's game, Chris, and you can get all the adulation. But I must admit to tuning into parts of the last couple of games. I managed to get online just before the end of the last game when they won promotion. And it was great to see. And I read an article today about how far they'd come in the last 7 years, I think, from playing on a park pitch and training on a car park to getting in the Women's Super League. And obviously with the TV deal that was announced a few weeks ago for the BBC and Sky to start televising games live, a perfect time for them to get promoted to the top tier.
I mean, I must admit, Richard, when I made that comment about the football being as good as or better than men's, I was actually referring to the England team, because it was the women's England football team I was watching, and it doesn't take a lot to be better than the men's England team at times, does it?
Not at late. No, it's been a little bit frustrating to watch, hasn't it, at times? But we've got an exciting summer ahead of us. I'm sure they'll produce the goods there.
Well, I'll get excited once we actually get to these tournaments. But let's get back. A small matter this weekend. Top 4 clash. 5 past 2. You can tell that's arranged for football and TV. I mean, that's arranged for the TV. Sunday the 11th from the London Stadium. Leicester City go away to West Ham. It's on Sky Sports. It's on BBC Radio 5 Live. If you like the coverage, it's in BBC Radio Leicester, or of course you can listen to a couple of ex-players on lcfc.com who'll be producing it live as well. Big match, Craig. 6-pointer. I referred to it before as a 6-pointer. Do you think so?
I think it is, and I think we need to put in a performance and sort of bounce back from last week. Although, I mean, Man City are playing so well, I think we could have had the combined armed forces across our defence line, and Kevin De Bruyne would have still found a way through it last week, I think. But this is definitely a 6-pointer. It's a difference between having a 7-point gap and a 1-point gap. So it is the proverbial 6-pointer, and it's a perfect game to show how far we've come in the way that we fell away last season. Whether we've now got that mettle and that solid mental strength to actually see the job through this year.
I mean, Richard, Craig alluded there to sort of last season when it all went wrong for us. We haven't had the break this season that we had last season to contend with, but also last season we had that big gap. And I'm not saying that players ever take the foot off the pedal, but when you've got a bit of a points gap, you think, well, we've lost a game, we've still got 9 points clear, and it slowly whittled away. This season, I don't know whether it makes a difference to it as a player or not, but we haven't got that gap, and we have to sort of go out every week. And I mean, you're saying you don't go out every week and try and win, but you know what I mean? Is that bit more sort of pressure, is there?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it's tighter as well, isn't it? We've always been looking over our shoulders for the last few weeks as well. You know, who's winning, who's not, and I think last season we did have probably a bit too big a gap if you could ever have one. And the complacency set in, didn't it? Obviously, for some reason we don't know why, but I think this year especially, we seem to have a much more competitive squad as well. You know, even though we've had injuries, we've still been able to maintain that competitiveness, and the players that have come in have done fantastic. So I think the strength in depth is a little bit better this year, and hopefully that'll see us through to the end this time.
Fingers crossed. Craig, I mean, I was talking to the West Ham fan last night. I mean, it's nosebleed time for them. You know, at the start of the season, we lost to West Ham, obviously, you know, in early in the season, and it was like disaster. I mean, having said that was one of those games where we didn't really turn up. It was a 3-0. We didn't actually have a shot on target for the whole game. At that point, it was like disaster, because we're thinking of West Ham as the team, as their own fans thought was going to be another relegation battle. And yet, here they are, the surprise package of the season, and there's no fans more surprised than their own fans. Yeah,
it was not a great performance by any means, was it? I think Declan Rice ran half the length of the pitch and crashed one against the bar as well, so it could have been even worse. You know, it just goes to show, I think, what most people knew, that David Moyes is a good manager. You know, I think he was very unlucky to not last long at Manchester United, and he was really unlucky to get booted out of West Ham after he'd done a good job and kept them up before. He knows what he's doing. He's an experienced manager. He's getting the best out of his players. He's not asking them to do anything they're not capable of. They're not complicating it. They're not looking at, you know, over tacticalizing the game, as it were. They just play to their strengths, and they're doing really well. And you know, it's going to be a tough game. And fair play to West Ham. You know, very much like, you know, on a lesser level, the way that people thought we were going to fall away when we won the league. You know, people have been saying week after week that West Ham are going to fall away, and they've just been strengthening their position. So it's a tough game.
Richard, I mean, Craig said there, David Moyes is a good manager. Personally, I've never been kind of over impressed with him. I mean, his time at Everton, he always promised so much, never quite delivered, because, you know, they would never sort of won anything with him there. Yes, I agree, Man United, he wasn't given a chance. And let's be honest with you, whoever followed Ferguson, unless they produced miracles, wasn't going to last long. West Ham, yeah, again, I have to agree with Craig there. He wasn't given a chance the first time round. He comes in again. The fans at that point didn't want him. The last guy they wanted. What he's doing now, it is amazing. Do you think he's a good manager?
I think he's obviously got some qualities there. For so many clubs to keep taking him, to giving him a position, but maybe he's gained that experience along the way now, and he's finally worked out how he wants to do things, and like Craig says, it's not full of stars, is it? West Ham, he's got them playing in such a way to their strengths, very much like we used to do when we won the league, etc. You play to your strengths, and maybe he's got that now, where that experience from a lot of these knockbacks, that he's managed to find a way of winning. And I'm going to take my hat off him, because I'm much agreement to yourself, Chris, that I wasn't a big fan of him, but you can't look at the league and deny what he's doing now. He's there later on in the season, and they're still up there, and they're getting stronger. So he's definitely turned it around for me.
Yeah. It is. This maybe is his season. Maybe he feels he's got something to prove. I mean, Craig, sometimes bringing a player in can save. I'm not saying that he was in risk of losing his job, but it can save a manager's job, or it can turn a manager's look around. I mean, Puel may well have gone earlier had he not brought Harvey Barnes back from West Ham, bringing Lingard in, who, if I remember at the time, Leicester players, because we were linked with him, were like, "Oh my God, no, we don't want Lingard." He's like getting a real tune out of him, isn't he?
I think players like Lingard just almost like to be given their head and just be told to go out and express themselves, as it were. You know, he's not being asked to do much defensively. We don't really know what he was being asked to do at Manchester United. You know, that he went through a few managers there and nobody could seem to get a tune out of him in the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years. You know, whether there's too
like
much
Inacho
expectation on him.
Leicester.
Exactly. He's just been given his head, said, right, go out, show us what you can do. You know, if you lose the ball, fans are not there, so it's very different. And I think West Ham are probably one of the teams who have actually benefited from fans not being there in the early part of the season, because, you know, when things weren't going so great, you know, the fans really make a difference at West Ham and can really get on the manager's back. So I think they're probably one of the few where it's benefited them. But because of that, you know, your players like Lingard are allowed to make mistakes without fans getting on their back. You know, they can go and do it. And if you make a mistake being positive and going forward, you know, people will let you get away with it a little bit more, I think. And he's taking his chance, and he's almost looking like a shoe-in for the England squad.
Yep. Just going to quickly say good evening and thank you for joining us to Luca's Life. If it comes up, there we go. We're all well, thank you, Luca. Hope you are. He's an Arsenal fan. Unlucky last night, but I was actually I did actually join an Arsenal watch along, believe it or not, because I know a couple of the guys who were broadcasting it. I did warn them that Slavia were actually a better team than you give them credit for, and I think they proved that right at the end. But going back to obviously more important matters, obviously Leicester City, Richard. Lingard, I mean, you know, we were linked with him in January. Would you go for him? Could he bring anything to Leicester?
Yeah, I mean, on current form, he's absolutely a pleasure to watch at the moment. But he's one of them players, isn't he? That is a very much of a confidence player. Very much, if he can, like Craig says, be given a free role and just go and express yourself. He's the type of player that can change a game. And he's very much on high in confidence at the moment. You can see in the ways he's playing. He's trying things. He's not holding back. He's got no pressure from the fans, as Craig has said again. You know, I think he's 100% correct there. He's that type of player. If somebody gets on his back a little bit, he might be the one that kind of shies away from what he would normally be doing. But at the moment, he's reaping the rewards for this situation, isn't he?
He is indeed, certainly. Craig, do you think he's the sort of player that Brendan could get a tune out of?
I think he's the player. He's the kind of player that Brendan would like. Whether Brendan would allow him as much freedom off the ball as Moyes does, I'm not sure, because I know Brendan does like his players to drop deep and do their share of defending as well. So whether he would suit him, but definitely as an offensive player, he's definitely the sort. Again, I'm not sure how old he is, whether his age would go against him. From Brendan looking at him, I'm not sure. We do look to, unless you're bringing in proven quality, and we all know Lingard's got quality, but it's not proven over a period of time at the moment. He's having a good season. So unless you're going to do that and get someone towards the latter end of their career, I would say, who will do a good job for 3-4 seasons, we tend to look at players who have got a sell-on value, and I don't think there would be any sell-on value from Lingard after he'd come to us. So I think there's a lot to weigh up, but from a purely playing perspective, he's definitely somebody who would suit us, I think.
He's 20. I've just checked. The advantage of having two laptops next to each other, I can Google at the same time, which makes me look really knowledgeable. I mean, Craig is naturally a wise old sage. I'm just old, but I have got two laptops. Jesse Lingard is 28, believe it or not. I thought he might be a bit older than that. He seems to have been around for ages, Richard. we need another striker, don't we? I mean, we've got only 2 recognised strikers who at the moment have hit it off brilliantly and are playing well together as those 2 up front. But we're gonna and we've been saying this for sort of the last couple of years in like 4 windows. We need another striker, but surely this, off season we've got to go and get a third one.
Yeah, I think you absolutely, yeah. As well as the guys are doing up front at the moment. If one of them gets injured, we're a bit stumped again, aren't we, on that current situation that we're in? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not sure who the type of player that we need. In all honesty, is it another like Craig said, a Lingard type player, somebody who can drop a bit deeper and create it, or do we need an out and out striker? I mean, how many goals is Lingard going to get you a season? I don't know. He'll do well to get into double figures, wouldn't he? He's that type of player. I mean, how many has he got this year? Do we know?
He's got 8 this year. Oh no, sorry, he's got 6 goals this year, and he's made 8 appearances. That's not a bad
no,
term, 6 in 8, is it?
No. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? But we definitely do need some more depth in that position. I'm not sure where Brendan would go with that, though. Obviously, he's been looking.
Craig, we like we said before, we do need another one.
See, I'm not sure of Lingard's type. When players are mentioned, I look at who would you drop for him. That's my first question. Who would you play him instead of? And at the moment, I'm not sure who I would play him instead of. So therefore, he automatically becomes a squad player. And Lingard's a player who needs to play week in, week out. I don't think he's one of those, a little bit like Perez, a little bit like Iheanacho, that if they're just coming off the bench and getting little bits and pieces, they don't show their true worth. And I think what you would end up doing is almost creating another problem with a Lingard. If our squad stays as it is, I'm not sure where he fits in, to be honest. He would probably replace Perez, but then, when Harvey Barnes comes back, is Perez still playing as well? So it's these problems that Brendan has in terms of keeping a happy squad. But there are, if you've got younger players that have got something in them that you can help and develop, then I think they're a little bit more accepting of a place on the bench and knowing that they're growing as a player. Bringing in someone like Lingard, he's going to expect to play. And it would just probably cause another problem for me.
It's a manager, aren't they?
Sorry, Richard.
Sorry, the players such as the younger players coming through, what Craig said there, they're easier to manage. They're not expected to play week in, week out, but when they do, that they are easier to manage, whereas Lingard would be expecting a place, and it can cause friction.
But next season, we're going to have a Jamie Vardy who's getting, you've got to say with obviously love him to bits, but how many full seasons of 90 minutes has he got in him? So he's going to have to be replaced. I know Craig said, who do we replace? If he gets a knock, whereas he, a couple of seasons ago, he was out for 1-2 games, he's now out for 4 or 5 games. Coming back, we know he's not, on full fitness, full form. We've seen that. We're going to be on 4 fronts, which includes hopefully the Champions League. We're going to need a big squad. But Craig, do we need to bring somebody in, or as Scott, and good evening, Scott, thanks for joining us, says here, do we sort of give a chance to some of the younger players? He's named on there Kamal Sohar. I don't know if I've pronounced that right. I'm like with my pronunciations. Anything past Chris Brown, and I'm struggling. And he's made the point here, we've got a lot of players out on loan, but we do need that Vardy replacement, and soon to give them time to bed in, whether that's Eduardo from Celtic or Lingard, whoever. But we haven't got the biggest squad. We know that. There's players that we're going to be losing at the back. We're going to lose Morgan. We're going to lose Fuchs, almost certainly. the squad is aging. We do need to build that up.
Definitely, we do. But I think you've got to build that, or Brenda's got to build that cleverly, and bring in players who know. When you're bringing a player in from abroad or from a lower league, you know that their expectations are different. As Richard said there, you get to sell the club to them. You get to sell the project. You tell them that they may not play every week, but they'll get games. We will be in a lot of competitions. They'll get games. The same thing happened when Soyuncu came. I think he wasn't expecting to play. He got his chance and he got in straight away, and he's kept it. The same with Fofana. Probably wasn't expecting to play as many games as he has. But I think when you're buying somebody, particularly who's in their last, Lingard would be looking now for his last contract. At the age of 28, whatever he gets, he's going to be asking for 3-4 years. He's going to be asking for some big money. Do you do that in this squad, knowing that he's not necessarily going to play that many games? I don't see him as a Jamie replacement at all. For me, he's a number 10. So you're looking then at Maddison, and I can't see him displacing Maddison, to be honest. So I'm not sure Lingard's the sort of player that we need. But if we are bulking up the squad, I know we've been linked with a couple of players, another young defender from Turkey, I think, a Hungarian lad. And there's a few strikers that we're being linked with. But I don't think you can pad it out with sort of towards the end of their career Premier League players, because what you do then is you end up with a bench full of those sort of players as well. So the opportunities for the younger players to even make the bench become limited as well. You imagine bringing in a Lingard and saying, well, this week you're not even going to make the bench, mate. It's not going to happen. So you block the pathway to the younger players. And if we're setting ourselves up to be... Go on.
I'm with you, because I remember there was a time, and I used to call us the Derby and Jones Football Club, because we seemed to get all these players at the end of their Premier League career. We were in the Championship. We had Keown came to us at the end of his career, Ferdinand, Dublin, and it was like I say you came to us almost like you're saying there for your pension. I want to move on because we've kind of gone off in a separate way, but I just want to say hello to David Gamble. David, hi, welcome along. Thanks for joining us. Brookline all the way from America. And I want to just finish on this before we get back to the West Ham game, Richard. Under didn't work out. The rumours are now that we're not going to sign him. And, I can't argue as much as I thought he was the guy. And he seemed, when he came on, to sort of be keen and wanting to shoot and what have you. He's not been the player. And, Brendan sees him a lot more than we do. We've been linked with Thavin, is it? Again, I can't pronounce it. But that right wing, with Mark getting on a little bit now, Mark Albrighton, that is something we're going to have to look at, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a shame Under's not worked out. I think people spoke highly of him at the beginning, but yeah, I think we've seen on a regular basis that he's not quite Premier League standard. I don't think, especially the top half of the Premier League. Yeah, Mark Albrighton, he keeps doing it, doesn't he? I mean, we say, is he coming to the end of his career? I don't know. Who knows? He seems like he's one of the fittest guys out there at the moment, and he always puts in such a shift. We have options, don't we? People can play. Barnes can swap from side to side as Perez as well. I mean, I don't know whether he can slot into that sort of wider area. But yeah, I mean, again, it's squad building, isn't it? It's squad strengthening. Yes. And we do need these type of areas to be filled, especially. Yeah. I think we're pretty strong at the back when we've got everybody fit. I think we've got a really, really strong defence now.
I think this season has kind of blown everything out of all proportion, if you like, because of what's gone on and how the season's been and the shortage of space, time. We've then got the Euros in the summer. Is it the World Cup this year at Christmas or something? I don't know, but there's all these extra international games. But don't start me on international games. Craig will tell you what I'm like when I start talking about international games. But let's get back to West Ham. Craig, pretty much tight between us. I mean, 27 times we've played in the Premier League. They've won 12. We've won 9, 6 draws. It's going to be a tough game, isn't it?
It is. I mean, we've got quite a decent record away, though, I think, over recent seasons. And I think it's probably one of those ideal games for us to bounce back in, because it's not going to be a sort of, playing a team that's fighting for their lives. It's all going to be a little bit manic, and you've got a lot to lose. We know that this is going to be a tough game, but I think what the team need to be doing now is almost, we've got the remnants of our title winning season, and for me, I look at this as you've got to get into the same mindset as we did when we won the league, that we were there to be shot at. Now, forget the top 2, even though we could, conceivably take over Man United, but take that 3rd position as if we're top of the league at the minute, and everybody's expecting us to drop away. Everybody's trying to shoot us and catch us. And I think we need to invoke that sort of mentality from the likes of Vardy, from the likes of Schmeichel, the others that are still at the club, Wes Morgan, and try and instill that thought process that we're there to be shot at. But this year, after what we went through last year, we're much mentally stronger. And I think this is an ideal game for us to show whether we can see it through or whether we might be under a little bit of pressure. And I'm sure the players will feel it and the players will respond to it.
Richard, we were talking before we came live and trying to forget last week's with this week's game. That was almost a free hit. This, if you like, and it's been said quite a bit, this is probably the more important game.
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah. Man City have gone. Yeah, they're too far ahead for us, obviously. And I think that game proved that a little bit last week. I think that's the difference between where we are and where they are at the moment. But yeah, it's a big game, isn't it, Sunday? And I think after the experience of what we had last year, I mean, experience is massive in football. We've been there, we've done that last year, and we faded badly. So the players will be hell-bent on not letting anything like that happen again. They'll be very conscious of that. And I think Sunday's game is going to be an ideal situation for them to be able to prove that point.
I mean, I'll just stick with you for this one, Richard, because as a player and how these things affect you, because I can remember a few years ago, it's recently, and I'll never forget the Watford game, in the playoff semi-final. We were there, we had that penalty. There's me and I've got 2 sons, me and one son jumping up and down cheering, and my older son turns on and says, "Yeah, but Dad, we've got to score this yet." And I blame him, to this day, I blame him for Knockaert missing. But when that happened, and we were so, I mean, it literally, you could taste the Premier League. We were that close. And I think had we got through to the final, I honestly think we would have won that. The next season, we went out almost like determined we weren't going to be in the playoffs. We went up as champions, and we broke virtually every record that was going for number of wins, away wins on the trot. As a player, do you think about things like that? Do you think right, not going to let that happen again?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's situations that you never forget. I played in the Swindon playoff final. And
thanks for reminding me of that one as well. Yeah.
Having been 3-0 down and got back to 3-0, there was only going to be one winner, but we lost.
Yeah.
But but then we carried it on for the next year, and the mentality of the players were, we're not going to let that happen again. So it's the same scenario. I think coming from last year, it's well documented. The players will know what everybody's talking about. It'll be weighing heavily on their shoulders from last year. There'll be nobody more disappointed than the players. I can tell you that. As much as we are fans, but the players will be absolutely devastated that they didn't produce what they should have. So this year, I'm convinced that we're going to have enough to see it through.
Craig, as the scorer of one of the best ever goals at the King Power, yes, your friend Keith used to keep reminding us. The manager shouldn't really. The manager, will remind it, but like Richard said there, that's all he should have to do, really, isn't it? Is stick a table up from last year or the Man United result up from last year in the changing room, and that should be enough to get them going.
Well, it should be, but Richard obviously knows this much better than I do. But these are almost like the unseen parts of a player's makeup that, when you're just watching a game, that you don't really see. We judge people on how skillful they are, what a good finisher they are, but that inner strength and the mental side of a game of a top player is really important. We've seen it for years with the likes of Barcelona. When you're at the top, they always say how hard it is to win it again, but you've got to have that mental toughness to be able to go and do it again. And this is no different. This is the mental strength side of a footballer coming out. And as Richard touched on there, we feel it, but the players feel it as well. The players, when you think how many players go through academies and the like, it's not just their playing skill that gets them through to the top. It's the mental strength, it's their attitude, it's all of those things that are brought to bear just for parts of a season or even little microcosms of a game, where the difference comes between top players and the average players. And I think we've got some really top players. And let's not forget, people are playing for places in Euro squads as well. Whether I've put him in my team or not, the likes of Maddison has got something to prove over the next few weeks. For when Gareth names his squad, and he's not just that. There's other players in the Belgium squad that people are playing for their places in squads at the minute for the Euro. So there's so much going on at the minute. People want to be in the team. They want to be playing in the FA Cup semi-final, I'm sure. So they can't let their standards drop, and that mental side is going to be where we win or fail.
If you believe Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville, it's Madison's not going to even be in the squad for the Euros. So we will wait and see whether he makes your squad in a bit, Craig. Richard, we said how tight it is. I mean, as you look at the table there, I am literally, we're doing a watch along on the show on Sunday. I'm going to have about 3 pairs of spare underpants next to me. If they win, they're 1 point behind us. It is squeaky bum time. It's so tight there, but going into the game, if you look at sort of, recent results, the last 5 results there, 2 wins, 2 losses and a draw each. There's nothing to separate us. The goal difference is almost the same, goals for and goals against. I don't know about you. I am really, really nervous.
I'm the opposite, actually. I'm really looking forward to Sunday's game. I wasn't looking forward to last week's game because you kind of knew what was coming to a certain extent. But I think these are 2 teams that are, fighting for that end goal. This game could be quite decisive, couldn't it? So there's going to be a lot at stake. But I think we've got the quality to get us through this. Personally, I think we'll get a result on Sunday. I'm pretty confident.
I will remind you of how confident you are when we speak pre-match and the team's been announced. Because Craig, you got me that's having to sort of watch the game sat on the lavatory. You've got Richard there, who's that confident he's going to be sat there laid back in his armchair with a scotch at the side. Which side of the fence are you falling on?
I'm confident. I think, as I said, I think this is a great game for us to go into. You know, we've seen that as much of that West Ham are good going forward. We've also seen they've got a bit of a soft underbelly. They gave away a 3-goal lead against Arsenal. They almost did the same against Wolves. And, you know, Wolves had a lot of efforts in that first half as well. So, you know, even when if they got a goal up, that shouldn't really, you know, knock our confidence either, because we know we've still got the record, I think, for the most late goals in the last quarter of a game or last 15 minutes of a game. Yeah. West Ham must be right up there in terms of the numbers conceded. So I think we sometimes, as a Leicester fan, we big up the opposition a little bit too much and we knock ourselves down. You know, it's just the nature of being a fan, I think. But I'm siding with Richard. I'm quite confident on this one.
I mean, again, you probably won't know Richard. Craig will tell you my hatred of Wolverhampton Wanderers goes back to the Mark McGee saga, but I've never cheered them on so much. Yeah, exactly.
He played me at right back. I mean, I've never played right back in my life, and he played me there.
Maybe we were lucky that he went then if he didn't know what he was doing.
Oh, yeah.
but I've never cheered Wolves on as much as that. And, you know, 3-2, I'm like, come on. It was embarrassing. I'm going to say, again, another good evening here to Richard. He's got his channel, Rich Sports. Check it out on YouTube. It's a really good channel. He's a Man United fan. Which probably means he's from Surrey, but he's a Man United fan. But his shows are great because there's a lot of just general Premier League content in there. Rich Sports on YouTube, it's well worth a look. I mean, and he's saying he wants a draw, but he hopes that we both get into the top 4. So cheers, Rich. You're not hoping as much as we are, but thanks a lot. Tony says here we play better away from home. We was that way. Would you still say it's that way, Craig? I think it's pretty much balanced out now, hasn't it?
I think we've had some better results at home, yeah, than we had done. I think we had a shocking home record early on in the season, but I think away from home our record has held up. To be honest, I think we're, and I think, you know, we keep saying it's a strange season. You know, the no fans thing does make a difference. I mean, Richard, you'll know better than we do what an impact fans have, either positively or negatively, for home fans when it's not going so well, and whether the away team feeds off that and can sense the home fans getting on their backs. So that's been taken away from it. But it'd be interesting to know from your perspective how much you can actually take the vibes of the fans that are in the ground, or whether you are so concentrated on what's going on the pitch.
I think, yeah, you are so focused on your individual role and as a team collectively, but you can't ignore the energy that comes from the stadiums. You can't ignore it, especially at this level as well. It's inspiring, to be honest with you, when you walk out on that pitch and you feel the crowd, whether you're at home or away, you do feel the energy. And so, like you said, if the home supporters are getting on your back, it gives you a lift. It does give you a lift as an away team. But there's always that at the back of your mind. As soon as the home side scores a goal, you're up against it again. You know, the energy's back again for the home team. So, absolutely. I think it's almost 10-20% taken away from the game without the supporters at the moment. I know we've got used to watching it now and listening to the sound effects on the TV, which is, you know, it's quite embarrassing at times. But yeah, it's, you know, they've done the best they can for that. But I didn't mean that. The energy, it's you can't ignore that, and it does make a difference, definitely, for my experience.
We're going to look at the see if Craig can do better than Mark McGee and not put a central defender in at right back in a second. But I just want to, just on that point, because at the start of the season, and it's just a quick answer for me both before we move on. It's do you prefer, when you watch it on the telly, do you go for the channel with no crowd effects, or do you go for the channel with crowd effects? For me, it's with crowd effects, because otherwise it's like watching a training game. Richard first, which do you prefer?
Well, I'm the opposite, because I love to hear the communication. You can actually hear the players talking, and you know which players are the leaders. You can hear Schmeichel, you can hear Johnny Evans all day long. That gives me the insight on who's the leaders on the pitch, who's giving the directions. And I think that's maybe just because I have played, I understand the communication side of it. But all day long for me. Yeah, no sound.
Craig?
Yeah, I have the crowd sound on, to be honest. Although sometimes, I remember particularly there's been a couple of games where even Schmeichel cuts through that. It's almost like he's wearing a mic. Yeah. But yeah, without any crowd noise, I find it a little bit deadly almost. It is good to hear, what you can hear, but then it just shows it. I think this has showed, and I really hope just a second on this. I really hope that the clubs take into account how much the fans mean. And again, Richard, you know better, but as a fan, sometimes you get the feeling that the crowd is taken for granted. The fact that they will always be there, and you are just seen as a not just as a paying customer, but you are less important. And of course, we're less important than the players. But I think this has shown how important the fans are and what a part they play in the success or otherwise of a club. And I really hope that when we're back in there, that the clubs and the players sort of recognise that and take that on board, and fans are almost seen in a new light as to what they bring to football.
Would you agree with that, Richard?
Football's nothing without fans. It is nothing. It's you take the heart away from it, don't you? The supporters make the game. In all honesty, as good as the players are to watch, without the atmosphere and that they create the game situation, they create the energy. And I totally agree with you that clubs need to recognise how important, which I think they do now, whether they did before. A lot of them used to take them for granted, but I know Leicester have always, as a club, have been so supportive of the fans.
Couple of comments here, and then we'll go and have a look, like I say, at Craig with Brendan's hat on. Peter Hyde, good evening, Peter, all the way from Southend. Hopefully it's sunny at this time of night. Tough bloody game, 3 words to sum it up there. Andy basically sums it all up about the fans. Totally agree with you here, Andy. Good evening, with crowd effects, otherwise it's like watching Forest. Couldn't have put it better myself, young Andrew. I really couldn't. Right, we're just going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. And Craig, tonight you've got Richard, who is going to probably agree or disagree with your team selection. It'll be interesting to see what he thinks. But we'll be right back after this few second quick message.
Hi, Alan Smith here. Be sure to watch and listen to Chris on Leicester Till I Die TV. You can also subscribe on YouTube and various social media channels. Up the Foxes!
Thanks a lot there, Alan. Now, I don't know if this is going to work, because Craig, being Craig, has gone for a formation this week that doesn't even exist on any formation finder that I could find. Certainly not the one that I use most weeks with the picture. I had to kind of use a different one. So, Richard, if this goes tits up, you blame Craig. And I've just realised it looks a bit like University Challenge at the moment, doesn't it? I feel like I could put my hand down there and the finger will come out on top of Craig's head. But Yeah. It'd be worse than that. It'd be my foot after you pick this team. Right, let's just have a look and see if this is going to work. And I don't know if it will. There we go. It might just. I don't know if anybody can actually see that or not. It is quite small, but I think. And again, I've got numbers here. It's even shown me, Craig, the right midfield as a centre midfield. You pick this formation again, mate. I'm having somebody else on the show. I promise you that. But quick quiz question for you here, Richard. Who do you think Craig's gone for in goal?
Peter.
I think that one in fairness is always a given, a bit like 3 points to Man City. We give him that one. Now, Craig, after the success of us playing three at the back, and it has been, apart from Man City, it has been really successful recently with the two up front, three at the back, and they've becoming five when the two wing backs sort of fall back. You've actually gone for a back four this time.
I have. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that I want to get the offensive players on the pitch who I think can take the game to West Ham, but also I'm okay with a back three if the players are in their right positions. And again, it's great having you on, Richard, because you'll be able to tell us from an actual player's perspective whether I'm talking rubbish, which is obviously often the case. But for me, particularly, I think there's more in being a right-sided centre-half and a left-sided centre-half than some people sometimes give credit for, particularly if you're playing in a three. If you're always a right-sided player and then you're asked to play on the left, is that a big difference, or am I sort of making that up? Because I see players like that and they look much more comfortable playing off their left or playing off their right. So when they're asked to switch, for me, it looks a little bit awkward. And the fact that we asked Fofana, a great player that he is, to switch over because Soyuncu wasn't there when we brought Amati in, for me, it just takes a little bit away. Am I making too much of playing right or left as a centre half?
No, absolutely no. You're spot on for me, Craig. Yeah, I mean, we all know Evans has got quite a sweet left foot, actually, the balance wise. He's very comfortable on his left side as well. So yeah, absolutely. If the more dominant left sided will play the left sided, and likewise with the right side, it's just so much more natural. The angles that you're looking at, the balls you're looking to play, everything about it, positioning wise, is a lot more natural, and that's what you need as a player. You need to feel comfortable.
That's good to hear, Richard, because because I look at that when I'm picking the centre halves or the back three or whatever it is, on which side they're most comfortable. So I don't like to just play the defenders just because they're defenders. For me, I'd rather play a balanced. I'd rather play a balanced team than basically just moving someone over because they're a centre half, as it were. And for me, I think we looked a little bit unbalanced last week.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Craig, I've filled that in. I'm just going to say hello to Stefan. Yes, we are back. Stefan is Richard. I'll introduce him to you. He's an Aston Villa fan who actually probably spends more time on this site than he does his own. He's a wannabe closet Leicester fan. Stefan, you know I'm joking. I love you, really. Nice to have you on board. Thanks very much. After you said all that, Craig, have I put those players in the right order for you?
Yeah, so Evans on the left and Fofana on the right of the pair, and then Ricardo and Castagna. That to me is people playing in their most comfortable positions across the back four.
If you're playing, Richard, a back four, that is as strong a back four as we've got at the club, isn't it? You could possibly say Justin, but if you're going to go for a back four, I do like that back four.
Yes, yeah, it's proven this season that those are. I mean, it's nice to have Ricardo back. I still don't think he's 100%. We've not seen what we did last year just yet, but the more he plays, the quicker he'll get back into that. Yeah, for me, Fofana's been an absolute. He's been brilliant this season. Every game he's played, he's been fantastic. And Evans and Castagna, they're both internationals, and it's solid. And we've got Soyuncu as well. I mean, but is he fit for Sunday as well? So,
no, he's got the COVID, hasn't he? Still, yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's not available. Okay.
No.
No. I mean that's as strong as it gets. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah, with the players we've got, and we know we've been unlucky, but we have got. When you come to think, you look there. And we were talking earlier about the players we were signing. You forget about James Justin, forget about Soyuncu, those to come back in. But Craig, you've been, and I know obviously it's a case of who you can there play, who's available. Evans, I mean, I always remember when Evans first came to us, those first few games, he didn't look comfortable at all. Since then, he has become a stalwart of the squad. He's there for me. He's because only nothing against Casper. I just don't like goalkeepers as captains. To me, he is a captain. But let's be honest with you, the last game or so, you weren't very happy with him. And be careful. Remember, you've got a defender watching here.
I know, and I will always bow down to the better knowledge and the experience, obviously. But I don't know. Sometimes I think because we know that Evans can be so solid, when he drops below it almost becomes a little bit frustrating. And I've read quite a bit this year, and he gets really frustrating when he just stands there with the ball. And I've read of why he does it, to try and draw players to him to create space. But I think sometimes, particularly this season, where it seems to be every team is so very well organised, sometimes he's a little bit too slow in moving the ball on, and then teams get back in their shape, and it makes it a little bit more difficult for us to actually break them down. So I find him a little bit frustrating in terms of him not moving the ball quick enough for me.
Yeah. Moving forward then, I think again the defensive midfielder role, I think we know who that's going to. I don't think you'd argue with that, would you, Richard?
Absolutely not. No. Best in the league at the moment for that position.
Yeah. First name on the team sheet, Craig, almost?
I think so, if he's fit, because I think everything revolves around him. I've said this before. I don't like it when Brendan started playing a 2 earlier in the season. For me, when you've got 2 defensive midfielders, it can almost be, well, the other one will pick that guy up, the other one will do that covering. When it's indeed his job, he knows it's his sole job. That's his area of the pitch to look after. There's none of this, I'll leave it to the other guy. So I think you get much more out of Ndidi when he's playing on his own rather than with a defensive back 2 there.
Now, I had to ask you when just move. There's my OCD taking over. I want the player to be dead in the centre. I had to ask you this earlier when you sent me the team through in advance to sort of do the graphics and what have you about this 3 attacking midfielders. I mean, centre midfield there, is that, well, who are you going to have in the centre midfield?
Tielemans.
It is Tielemans.
I mean, he often plays a little bit deeper anyway, as I said, and you keep giving me stick for that. I see him as the quarterback in this team where
Here we go.
He dictates play. So he naturally plays a little bit deeper anyway, not alongside Ndidi, but he does play almost in front of him. So he's always going to be the guy in the middle for me, pulling the strings.
Okay. Now then, here's where we get a little bit controversial, and I'd be interested on Richard's thoughts on this one. Let us first of all go. Let's go left midfield first of all.
Okay, so we've got Maddison in there.
Has he now? I don't know. Has he played on the left much, or I mean, I know he's obviously more central, isn't he?
Yeah, for me though, I think this formation, the way I've done this, is that with Tielemans dropping, Maddison and Perez can interchange. We have to stick them on the pitch somewhere, but for me, they can be really hard to pick up for West Ham's defensive line, and with Declan Rice not being there, for me, they can almost have free roles switching around those two positions between them and just finding pockets of space that that Tielemans can get them on the ball. That's for me, rather than them being stuck in a right or left sided position. I think we've got fullbacks who like to use that space in front anywhere, and I think sometimes when you're playing with out and out wingers, it can actually stop the fullbacks getting forward because they find someone in their way, whereas these tend to want to drift inside anyway. So I think with Tielemans dropping a little bit deeper, those two can interchange and cause a lot of problems for West Ham.
Richard, Perez on the wing again, not been his best position this season. Maddison, more of a central player. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. To be fair, like Craig says, there's going to be a lot of rotation within them positions. There's some dropping deep, some pulling forward. Wilf will be receiving, and we'll be winning the ball and playing it simple to Tielemans or Maddison themselves, I guess. I mean, to be fair, Perez, the last few games, I've been a lot more impressed with him. When I was first on the show, we had a discussion about Perez himself over the season on a whole, and we all kind of agreed that he's been quite poor. But at late, I think he's actually stood out for me, and he's put in some good performances. So deservedly, I think he should be in the team at the moment. And it's exciting to have that kind of quality within the midfield.
Craig, I often disagree with you, but you've got Richard on your side, so I'm going to sit back here and go, great choice,
Thanks,
mate.
Richard.
I would have done that exactly the same. But I think now this will impress you. I think it impresses you at all. Not that I'm looking at it at all, but I think we know which two players are going to go up front there.
The most impressive thing will be you spelling Iheanacho correctly.
Which is correct. That is correct there.
Yeah. I think,
you've got to play them
I think for
front,
me,
haven't you?
yeah, I think, this is the thing in terms of one of the reasons that I've gone back to the back four is that I think we've got players who don't deserve to be dropped. I don't think Perez or Iheanacho deserve to be dropped. And I think we need to get Maddison back on the pitch. He looked hungry when he had that short period in the last game. I think he's going to be fighting for a Euro squad spot. And I think now that he's had some time off, I think he's going to be even more determined to show what he can do. And for me, that gives us the basis for a sort of exciting and almost free-flowing front five almost if Tielemans is there. But I think that will upset West Ham a little bit because they tend to play... They often play with three centre-halves. So having two up against them is going to cause them a problem as well. But then their wing-backs like to get forward, which is going to create space for our three, who's sitting in behind the front two, to expose those spaces in behind the full-backs as well. So I personally, I like it as a quite exciting team, and I think we can really take the game to West Ham with that formation.
It certainly is, Richard. I'd agree with that, Craig. It is an exciting team, and looking at that, if it was 3 or 4-0, you wouldn't argue. I mean, we've kind of stumbled on this Iheanacho Vardy partnership. It's not worked before when it's been tried, but it's been given a bit of a player now that longer than it's ever been before. Vardy's becoming more of the provider, and if you like, distraction, because you can't. Whether Vardy's on form or not, you cannot let Vardy run and not have a couple of defenders go with him, which gives Iheanacho the space. Those two together really are exciting.
Yeah, I think we've been fortunate to, like you say, to stumble across that. Almost been pushed into it, and it's been delightful, hasn't it? I think the partnership between them has created so many goals and chances. and also within Iheanacho, he can drop off a little bit deep and receive the ball with his back to the ball and lay it off. He's done so well, hasn't he? Since he's come in, he almost gives you a higher end midfield player as well, because he's got that ability. With Vardy always on the shoulder, always looking on the shoulder. It's a completely different aspect to what we thought we'd have before. But I think that team there would, if Brendan went with that, it would prove his intentions that we want that third place spot. That's the difference, is it? Do you want to go there and grind out a draw? I don't think we do. I think we need to go there and just win the game.
Yeah, Craig. I mean, one of the reasons I have put on the pounds during this lockdown is the humble pie that I've been eating these last 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm very. I loved Iheanacho. I thought he was a brilliant signing. He's turning into a player that I thought we had signed. I was very critical of him, but he has come good. I can say that humble pie is tasting really nice. But he's not just a goal scorer. Sometimes I look at him and he has got an absolutely lovely first touch.
He has. I think the one that springs to mind, I think, was James Justin's goal away at Fulham when he dropped deep. I think he was only just in their half, but he dropped deep to receive the ball, dropped a shoulder and turned away from the defender easily, and then played a great ball into Maddison, who then held it up for James Justin to join in. So I think he's comfortable with that. The more minutes he gets, the more confident he gets. And we've always said that Iheanacho's a confidence player, and we're starting to see that now, and long may it continue.
Indeed. Looking at this, it's I think we've all agreed there that it's going to be a very, very exciting team, Craig. And I'm always interested to see. And Richard will be here with me with us on Sunday for the pre-match, just to see how close Brendan, because he does watch this, Brendan. People don't believe this, but he does watch this to see what team Craig's picks, and then he goes out and picks the completely opposite. But we will see how close that is. But yeah, let's have a look at what we've got coming up, and we'll sort of coming towards the end now. But we've got a really particularly hard finish. Although the 3 teams that we're all being told is going to be really, really hard for us, we have beaten them all this season, so maybe it's not as bad. West Ham, our nearest rivals at the moment, which is why I've done this. I couldn't do it for everybody. They've got a lot easier, looking at it on paper, running. Looking at that, West Brom, Palace, Southampton, Newcastle, you would hope we'd get a minimum of 3 wins out of that, wouldn't you, Richard?
You'd like to think so, but this is the Premier League, isn't it?
Exactly.
And any given day, any team in that Premier League can beat each other. So it just depends which team turns up, I'm afraid. We'd all like to think, we'll get it done and dusted before the last 3 games, but it's never going to happen, is it?
No, indeed. Like I say, especially with Leicester, it is a case of which Leicester, is going to turn up. I often say, with the real Leicester, please stand up, because we've no idea who you are. Craig, looking at, according to the national newspapers, West Ham have got one of the easier run-ins there. That said, Newcastle, Burnley, Brighton, fighting for their lives. You'd probably say West Brom will be down by then. Southampton, the last game of the season, will probably be safe. Chelsea, that could be a tough game, but they've got pretty much. And this is the worrying thing: is although I do take on board what Richard says, anybody can beat anybody, but they do have not the most difficult of running, shall we say?
Mm-hmm. For me, and I think we've said this the last couple of weeks, I'm sure Brendan is thinking the same way. Those 5 games that we've got next is our season. That's if we come through those, as say, with sort of 10 points upwards, I think that should be enough. That if we need to grind out a couple of draws in the end, then we can do so. I think he's got to be targeting these next 4-5 games as the make or break of this season.
Okay, it's that time of the week when we all make ourselves look silly. Well, some people do because they get the score wrong. Some of us, I have to say this, actually, a topping of the league, a topping of the fantasy league over 3x players. Oh, don't know who that could be. But let's have a look at what the predictions have come for this game. So here we go. And then I'll get your predictions as well, guys. Steve Walsh has gone for a 2-2. Steve Linex, as I said to you before that we came live, Richard, he's gone for a 2-0 to West Ham, but he realises he's bottom of the league, he's not going to win it, and he just goes for reverse psychology because he's only got one right all season. Big Marsh has gone for a 2-2. I was tempted, I've got to be honest with you, I was tempted to go 2-2 as well, but to be different, I thought we might just sneak it. And I've obviously, as you can see there, gone for a 2-1. We'll come to you first, Richard. What do you think it's going to be?
Well, if Brendan picks Craig's team, then it's going to be 3-1. 3-1. Yeah. If he doesn't pick Craig's team, then I think we still might sneak it 2-1.
I can't wait for the game now. I can't wait for the game. TM's gone 2-2 there, agreeing with Marshy and Walshy. Craig, you never agree with me.
No, a couple of times I have, and it's really, really hurt me. As you say, and thanks for supporting that team, Richard. Just call me the entertainer. I think 3-1 as well. I'm going for a 3-1.
Craig in his team selection is the Aussie RD list of Leicester City team picking, aren't you? All out attack. And we'll just say here that as we won't come up now, but Peter Hydes has gone for a 3-1 to Leicester. He's agreeing with you too. And then again, somebody's got to agree with you, Craig. We have a love-hate relationship, Richard. We love ourselves and hate each other. I jest, of course. Richard, it's been great to have you on. Thanks very much for coming on, mate. It's been great. Always good to have another an ex-player's perspective on things. Shows us we really, really don't know what we're talking about at all. But
pleasure.
I will see you, God willing, about 1:15 on Sunday, and just after the team's announced.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Cheers, Craig.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
So it's gone on so long. Thanks very much, Richard. All the best, mate. Take care.
Cheers, Richard.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thanks a lot to Richard there. Andy is agreeing with you here, Craig. It's 3-1. Craig will be unbearable.
No, not at all.
Andy, I've got to just say, when you said will be, what's this will be? You should have put a full stop after 3-1, full stop, and then Craig is unbearable. That would have been correct. If it is, we'll have somebody else on next week. Craig, as always, sir, my wise old sage, a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much, young man.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Should have gone to Specsavers, as you know, young man. Guys, Thanks a lot. To see you next week, Craig.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot to Craig, and thanks a lot to Richard there. Great show. Hope you enjoyed it. We will see on Saturday at 1:15 with Josh, and Richard will be back just to see how close Craig has got to getting his team right. It will be interesting to see. 2:05, it's the match. We're hopefully going to be doing a watch along with Josh, and you'll hear lots of swearing. We're not commentating. Put it on the TV if you've got Sky. Turn the sound off because you know they'll be talking 90% West Ham anyway. Put the sound on for me and Josh and join in, and we'll have a bit of a giggle while we watch it. And then 4:35, the post-match show with ex-Fox Julian Watts and, of course, Brad. If you want to listen back to this, you can do. You can watch it on Leicester Till I Die TV. Please give us a subscribe if you're doing that. We would love you forever. Or if you want to listen to it on podcast form while you're doing the washing up for the missus, we're on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Podcast Addict, and Amazon Music. And if you've got a smart speaker, just say play the podcast Leicester Till I Die, and you will be able to pick us up. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for all the fans from other groups that have popped in as well. Nice to always see you. I will see you on Sunday. I'll see you on Sunday. Have a good weekend. Take care. See you then. Goodbye now.
Hello, Matt Elliott here. Be sure to watch Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and follow all their social media platforms for all the latest updates and news on Leicester City Football Club.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye and see you next time. They think it's all over. It is now.